In a quiet town, nestled between rolling green hills, there lived a man named Harold. He was a hard-working and kind-hearted person who always did his best in life. However, despite his efforts, Harold often felt dissatisfied. He had a habit that many people struggle with, constantly comparing himself to others. Whenever Harold saw his neighbor Mr. Thompson, who had been a successful businessman and lived in a large house with a beautiful garden, he thought, "If only I had that kind of wealth, I'd be happy." When he saw his younger friend, Jack, who still had the energy to run 5 miles every morning, Harold sighed. "I wish I were as strong and fit as he is." And whenever he talked to his old school friend, Robert, who seemed to know everything about history, science, and literature, Harold felt inferior, thinking, "I'll never be as smart as him." These thoughts weighed heavily on Harold's heart. He lost motivation in his daily activities, felt less joy in his hobbies, and started withdrawing from social gatherings. The more he compared himself to others, the more he felt like he had missed out on something in life. One day, a well-known spiritual teacher named Brother William visited the town. He was famous for his wisdom and ability to help people see life from a new perspective. When Harold heard about Brother William, he decided to seek his advice. When Harold met the teacher, he said, "Brother William, I've worked hard all my life, yet whenever I see someone better off than me, I feel disappointed. I don't think I'll ever be as successful as them. How can I stop feeling this way?" Brother William smiled kindly and replied, "Meet me tomorrow morning by the big oak tree in the town square. There you will find the answer you seek." Harold found this request unusual, but he trusted the wise man and agreed to come. The next morning, Harold arrived at the town square just as the sun was rising. Brother William was already there, standing beneath the mighty oak tree. The teacher gestured toward the park and asked, "Harold, what do you see around you?" Harold looked around and said, "Well, I see many trees. Some are tall, some are short. Some have bright autumn leaves, while others are evergreen. A few trees are heavy with fruit, while others just provide shade." Brother William nodded. "Now, tell me this. If an apple tree started complaining that it wasn't as tall as a pine tree, would that make sense?" Harold chuckled. "No, of course not. Apple trees are meant to grow fruit, while pine trees stand tall and provide timber. They each serve a purpose." The wise man continued, "Exactly. And what if the pine tree wished it could grow sweet apples instead of needles? Would that be fair?" Harold thought for a moment and replied, "No, that wouldn't make sense either. If every tree tried to be the same, we wouldn't have a balanced and beautiful forest." Brother William smiled and said, "That's one of the great truths of life. Just as each tree has its unique role, every person has their own journey. An apple tree is not meant to be a pine tree, and you are not meant to be anyone but yourself." Harold nodded, understanding the lesson, but he still had doubts. Brother William then led him to a small pond nearby. Ducks were gliding across the water, while birds soared in the sky. The teacher pointed to a fish swimming gracefully below the surface and asked, "Harold, if this fish envied the birds and wished it could fly, would that be fair?" Harold shook his head. "No, fish are meant to swim, just as birds are, meant to fly." Brother William smiled again. "Then why do you compare yourself to others? You were given your own unique strengths, just as others have theirs. If you spend your time wishing to be someone else, you will never appreciate what you have." At that moment, something in Harold's heart shifted. He realized that he had spent too much time measuring his life against others, instead of valuing his own experiences, wisdom, and achievements. From that day on, Harold stopped comparing himself to others. He focused on what he could do, instead of worrying about what others had. Instead of envying his successful neighbor, he took pride in the warmth of his home and the love of his family. Instead of wishing he were as fit as Jack, he enjoyed morning walks at his own pace, appreciating the fresh air. And rather than feeling inferior to Robert, he embraced his own knowledge and life lessons, sharing stories that others found just as valuable. Years passed, and Harold became known as a wise and content man in his community. Younger people sought his advice, and he always shared the lesson he had learned from Brother William. Never compare yourself to others. If a fish tries to fly, it will always fail. But if it focuses on swimming, it can rule the entire ocean. Life is not about outshining others. It's about finding your own light and letting it shine. Like the sun and the moon, we all have our time and place to glow. Harold's words inspired many, especially those in their later years who sometimes felt as though their best days were behind them. He showed them that life is not a competition, but a journey where each person's path is meaningful in its own way. As we age, it's easy to look at others and feel like we should have done more, achieved more, or been more like someone else. But the truth is, your journey is uniquely yours. You have memories, wisdom, and experiences that no one else has. Instead of measuring your life against others, celebrate the life you have lived and the people you have touched. So, the next time you find yourself comparing your life to someone else's, remember Harold's lesson. Fish don't need to fly, and trees don't need to be the same height. Be yourself, embrace your strengths, and trust that your journey is just as valuable as anyone else's. Remember, your journey is uniquely yours. Stop measuring your worth against others. The moment you embrace your own path, you will unlock true happiness. If this story inspired you, don't let it stop here. Take the first step toward self-acceptance. Don't like this video. If it resonated with you, subscribe for more motivational content, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's inspire each other. And remember, you are enough just as you are. Keep shining, because the world needs